Live from Hazard, Kentucky, this is Jammin Jon's Wrestling News. Here's your news for Wednesday, January 2nd, 2019. We start off with some tragic news in the professional wrestling world. The WWE announced the following today. WWE is saddened to learn that WWE Hall of Famer Gene Okerlund, the most recognizable interviewer in pro wrestling history, has passed away at age 76. In his early days, Mean Gene, as he was named by fellow Minnesotan Jesse "The Body" Ventura, first came to prominence by interviewing the greatest stars of the AWA, including Ventura, Bobby the Brain Heenan, and Hulk Hogan. In 1984, Okerlund made the move to WWE, where he became a staple on national cable television by continuing to interview the biggest names in sports entertainment like Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage, The Ultimate Warrior, and many more. Okerlund branched out from interviewing by providing ringside commentary and hosting several shows, including All-American Wrestling, Tuesday Night Titans, Wrestling Challenge, and Primetime Wrestling. Announcing wasn't all that Okerlund could do with a microphone, as his distinct voice sung the national anthem at the first WrestleMania in 1985. Later that year, Okerlund would sing Tutti Frutti on WWE's The Wrestling Album. In 1993, Okerlund joined WCW as lead interviewer, where he continued to interview many of the legends he had worked with in the AWA and WWE, as well as WCW stars Sting, Diamond Dallas Page, Goldberg, and others. In 2001, Okerlund returned to WWE to call the Gimmick Battle Royal at WrestleMania 17, along with Bobby the Brain Heenan, and continued to appear on WWE television programming, including being a cast member on WWE Network's Legends House. The WWE extends its condolences to Okerlund's family, friends, and fans. And regarding the death of Mean Gene, his son Todd Okerlund told the Associated Press that his father died early Wednesday at a hospital in Sarasota, Florida. StarTribune.com is reporting that Gene passed away around 5:30 a.m. in the hospital's emergency room. Gene's wife Jeanne was by his side when he died. Todd noted that his father had undergone 3 kidney transplants and fell ill a few weeks ago, adding that it just kind of went from bad to worse. Todd told StarTribune.com that his father was dealing with a lot of different issues, and the site noted that his death was from natural causes. Jesse Ventura was interviewed about Okerlund's death and said the following about his nickname. In an interview, I laughingly called him the Mean Gene Hot Air Machine and the Mean Gene Stuck. I'm proud that I gave him a nickname that will stick with him forever. And of course, as you know, many people in the wrestling industry have already reacted to the death of Mean Gene Okerlund. Here's some of the responses from many in the pro wrestling industry. Ric Flair said, "One of my closest friends since 1972 until this very sad day in 2019. Not only the greatest voice and personality in the history of announcing, but a man who touched everyone's life who were fortunate enough to know him. Rest in peace, knowing no one will ever replace you. You will forever be Mean by God Gene." Steve Austin said, "Just heard Mean Gene Okerlund has passed away. As an interviewer, pitchman, announcer, or host, he was untouchable. Simply the best. Total professional with quick wit, sarcasm, humor, and that golden voice. Condolences to his friends and family." Hulk Hogan simply said, "Mean Gene, I love you, my brother." Samoa Joe said, "Of the very few regrets I harbor in my career, one was never getting to scream Mean Gene when answering the queries of a man whose presence was larger than life and integrated in the better memories of my childhood. R.I.P. Mean Gene. My condolences to the Okerlund family." The Iron Sheik said, "I make the Mean Gene laugh so hard, hear he tell me I make him cry. He helped me when I don't remember the jabronis' names I wrestle. I love you, brother." Zelina Vega said, "Teared up to the news this morning on the passing of my dear friend and legend Gene Okerlund. He was one of the most amazing human beings I've ever met, and so supportive of me. You will be missed. My condolences to your family." Virgil said, "Man, Mean Gene was the greatest. He made every moment feel like it was the Super Bowl. He was the best. I'll miss all the great talks and moments we had. R.I.P. brother. Send my love to Andre, Kurt, and Rod." Jim Ross said, "So sad today to hear of the sudden passing of my dear friend Gene Okerlund. I just saw Mean Gene in North Carolina at WrestleCade. It's so true that our tomorrows are never guaranteed. Say hello to Jan, Mean Gene. Triple H said, a voice and soundtrack to an entire era of our industry. He was the star of some of WWE's most memorable segments. Mean Gene was beloved by all who got to work with him. Our thoughts are with his family at this difficult time. Big E said, Mean Gene was the voice of millions of childhoods. Mine certainly. An honor to meet him. Condolences to his family. Tony Schiavone said, devastated to hear the news of my friend Gene Okerlund's passing. He was, and always will be, pro wrestling's greatest stickman. Bully Ray said, R.I.P. Mean Gene. Thanks for the memories and being a gentleman. God bless. Charles Robinson said, so sad to hear of the passing of one of the greatest voices in wrestling. Mean Gene, you will be missed and we will continue to love you. What a true class act. I am very fortunate to work with you. Scott Stanford said, this guy is the reason I wanted to be an announcer in WWE. Mean Gene was every bit a part of the show as the superstars were. His interviewing style and interactions were every bit as entertaining as the action itself. Just an all-around great guy. R.I.P. Mean Gene. Ted DiBiase said, WWE Universe has lost one of its greatest announcers and truly one of the nicest guys you'd ever know. Mean Gene Okerlund. R.I.P. my friend. And Drake Maverick said, I remember the first time I met Gene. Mean Gene came up to me and said, Spud, I was walking around the offices of Titan Towers in Stamford, Connecticut. Do you know who was talking about you? I said, oh my God, who, Gene? And Gene said, absolutely effing nobody. God bless you, sir. The first time I ever heard Mean Gene Okerlund's voice was back in 1999. I was 5 years old and I had just recently gotten a PlayStation, and one of my favorite games to play on the PlayStation was WCW Mayhem. And I remember, selecting the wrestlers and getting the match ready and waiting for the entrances to happen. And before the entrances happened, the arena would pan out. You would see the whole arena and the stage and stuff, and then you'd hear Mean Gene's voice. Good evening, wrestling fans. This is Mean Gene Okerlund. Welcome to Thursday Thunder. And I heard that voice and I was like, oh my God, this guy's voice is amazing. It's so professional and golden. And I just loved his voice. And I didn't actually get to see what Mean Gene looked like until 2003, believe it or not. The WWE used to do this show on Spike TV called Confidential. And a lot of you that was born in the 2000s, you probably won't remember it. But Confidential was a show that came on after Velocity, late Saturday nights. And Mean Gene Okerlund was the host of it. They used to do these little documentaries on different wrestlers. They would talk about, like, wrestlers' personal lives and stuff outside of the ring, outside of kayfabe. And it was a really good show. I loved it. They done a really good documentary on Classy Freddie Blassie. The first time I ever seen Mean Gene Okerlund, I was over at my granny's house, staying the night over the weekend. If I was at my house, even on a Saturday, I had to go to bed early. But if I went over to my granny's house, I could stay up as long as I wanted to. So I remember me and my granny was in the bed, and we were watching the first episode of Velocity on Spike TV. And after that went off, the first episode of Confidential came on. And I remember when it came on, Mean Gene introduced himself, and I was like, oh my God, that's the guy that is the announcer in the WCW Mayhem game. And so, I just loved the way that he presented himself on Confidential. He was such a great host to that program. That program was him. He was quick-witted, he was so humorous, so professional, and he done a great job on that documentary about Freddie Blassie. If you have never seen that documentary on Freddie Blassie, and they have it on YouTube, you need to watch that. I really hope it's on YouTube. But search WWE Confidential Classy Freddie Blassie, because Gene Okerlund done a really good job narrating that. So he left a big impression on me by being the host of Confidential, and I thought, man, that would be really cool to do. A couple of months later, my mom went on a trip over to, I believe, Pikeville, Kentucky, London, Kentucky, Winchester, Kentucky, somewhere around that area. And she came back home, And she brought to me a cup that was checkerboard patterned, that had black and yellow on it. And on that cup, Mean Gene's face was on it, and it said Mean Gene's Burgers. And I thought to myself, what in the world is this? I didn't know that Mean Gene had his own restaurant. And I was like, he's got his own restaurant? And she's like, yeah, I ate there. I stopped at this gas station in so-and-so town and got this for you. I'm like, why didn't you take me? I wanted to eat at this place. You know, like, you don't really see a lot of pro wrestling restaurants. You had the Nitro Grill, and you had Pasta Mania, and, you know, you had the JR's Barbecue House, which the one in Oklahoma City is still around, I believe, but all the other ones are shut down. But, like, I wanted to go to this and experience this. But she brought, you know, one of the cups back as a souvenir and kept it for a long time, and sadly I lost that cup. I wish I still had it. Because a lot of the Mean Gene's Burger stuff is really, really collectible. Because, you know, Mean Gene's Burgers went out of business about a year or two later. And a lot of the, you know, merchandise like the cups and stuff like that was destroyed because it was just thought of as trash. But if I'm right, some of the stuff is on eBay and it sells pretty good, I believe. Because you don't really hear about it. I bet you probably 80% of the people that listens to my wrestling news podcast never knew that Mean Gene Okerlund had his own restaurant. But the ones that are in their 30s and 40s and their mid-20s would know that Mean Gene had his own restaurant. But yeah, you know, so I kept that for a long time and I wish I had it. I remember watching his Hall of Fame induction ceremony in 2006 when I was 12 years old. And I thought to myself, man, you know, that is so cool that you get to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame because you're an announcer and you're a commentator. You know, that must be such a fun job to do, just to go out there and talk about wrestling. That's got to be fun. And that's when I got it in my mindset that this is what I want to do. I just thought to myself, man, that could be me up there. And so he inspired me to go into pro wrestling. And to be a commentator. And to, you know, go into broadcasting. When I talk in my videos, when I talk on the radio, when I present and I read stuff here on JJWN, I do it in a manner of Mean Gene. You know, because he left that big of an impression on me that I decided to, like, I guess you could say, copy his mannerisms. And of course, as the old saying goes, imitation is the best form of flattery. I wanted to be half the man that Mean Gene Okerlund was, because that man was just super professional, so funny, and so witty, and I wanted to be like that. And I think it's incredible that I got to achieve a lot of dreams. I got to get into pro wrestling, I got to work an event, I got to do commentary, and all that, being Jammin Jon, all of that never would have happened if I never would have heard Mean Gene Okerlund's voice in 1999 at 5 years old. I owe everything to Mean Gene Okerlund. And I think the pro wrestling world has lost a huge part of his heart. And so, because he was the best announcer, the best commentator, and no one will ever be as great as him. Nobody. So Mean Gene, if you're somehow listening down on me right now, thank you so much for inspiring me to get into broadcasting, for inspiring me to have a future, to have a career, to continue to improve in my skills, to practice. Because every single time that I practice, I think to myself, like, try to, you know, pretend to be Mean Gene. Thank you, ma'am, for being such a big inspiration to me. I love you. And I know up in heaven right now, you're interviewing Macho Man. But again, thank you, Mean Gene. No one will ever take your place. Cody Rhodes issued the following statement regarding All Elite Wrestling on his Twitter page. The statement reads, "I feel so damn lucky. I believe that more than talent, more than chance, work ethic will guide me to where I want to go. To be executive vice president for our new venture and to be flanked by Matt and Nick and a few familiar faces sharing that position, this is my dream job. I can't think of a time when so many of wrestling's top free agents all opted out of the road usually traveled and instead wanted to start something new. I am excited to see AEW into existence. What's old isn't new. What's new is new. Perception isn't reality. Reality is reality. Fans first." And on the topic of AEW, ProWrestlingSheet.com is reporting that the Jacksonville Jaguars co-owner Tony Khan is the president of All Elite Wrestling. According to Forbes, the Khan family is worth around $6.3 billion. As expected, names such as the Young Bucks, Hangman Page, and Brandy Rhodes have signed AEW contracts. This week's Monday Night Raw, which aired on New Year's Eve, did 1.985 million viewers. This was above last week's 1.775 million viewers for Christmas Eve, but still way below what Raw averages. Here are the hourly numbers from ShowBuzzDaily.com. Hour number 1, 2.85 million viewers. Hour number 2, 2.26 million viewers. And hour number 3, 1.843 million viewers. And finally, here on Jammin Jon's Wrestling News, in an interview with the SportsDaily.com, John Cena commented on advice he got from The Rock. John Cena said, "The Rock has been genuine enough to tell me to be myself. I think it was great advice. It came right at a time when I needed it. I tried some movies before and they weren't really successful. The reason I was doing those movies was trying to create a business model. Then I looked back at myself and realized I just like telling stories. He gave me some pretty cool advice at unbelievable timing. He said, 'Hey man, they're going to like you or hate you for you. Be yourself. At least that way, at the end of the day, you'll feel good about your body of work.'" That is your news for Wednesday, January 2nd, 2019. Check back here tomorrow for another Jammin Jon's Wrestling News Flash Briefing on Amazon Alexa devices, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, and iTunes. Follow me on Twitter at John Caldwell, JONCOLWELL. Follow me on Instagram, The Jammin Jon. If you'd like to sponsor Jammin Jon's Wrestling News or your wrestling promotion wanting to get your next big event out, you can email me, jzcaldwell@gmail.com. That's JZCOLWELL@gmail.com. Big shout out to Ryan Hurdle and Tony Nelson for subscribing to my Patreon. You too can subscribe to me by going to patreon.com/JamminJon. I have free packages on there ranging from free to $7. Not a whole lot of money. I would really appreciate it if you supported me a little bit financially. Once again, that's patreon.com/JamminJon. This is Jammin Jon saying thanks, goodbye, and I'll see you tomorrow.